This is Chris Illing from THW. I'm your host tonight, and we are presenting our webinar trying to get our national networks involved and presenting to you the who will be speaking tonight. Basically, it's not just me. Then we will introduce you to our project to give you an idea what it's about if you're not fully aware of yet. And then we dive into the scenario-based approach, why we use this scenario and what we expect from this approach. Then I will walk you through this fictional scenario, and later on we will have a presentation of the knowledge gathering process. That's what's basically all about. And then we will give you a very quick view on the next steps you can assume. So these are the presenters tonight. My colleague Ronald Nepperholt from the German Aerospace Center, who's also working package leader in our project, and Balázs Kern from Arctic, who's from Break Management Office, and myself. I'm the coordinator of the DAREnet project. So now I would hand over to my colleague Balázs.
So hello, welcome also from my side. If you have questions, just feel free to ask at any time. And yeah, as mentioned, this is recorded and will be made available also later on the public website. So now I would like to give you a short introduction to the DAREnet project. I see there's some of the consortium members on the line. This might be boring for them, but all the others who are not involved in this project, it might be interesting for you what we are doing. And what to expect, of course, today. So we will present the DAREnet approach overall, what we're doing in that project. We will gather knowledge regarding the civil protection training as announced already in the invitation, introducing a fictional but representative flood scenario and identify tasks and activities. We will present a questionnaire that we will distribute after this webinar. And we will try to motivate you to contribute to this project, in order to be able to compile research, development, and innovation opportunities. And all your input will be compiled and in a roadmap to address all training relevant aspects. All right, so who is DAREnet? As you can see, we are a European project consisting of 15 partners in the meanwhile. So our consortium was extended recently. As you can see, it covers basically all countries of the Danube region. And in addition to this, we have also partners from France, Belgium, and Poland. And the DAREnet partners consist of first responder organizations, but also from research and academia, private industry, as well as ministries, foundations, and so on. And what we're doing in DAREnet, is quite simple. And in order to explain this, I would like to show you a short introductory video on the project.
Tokom poplava 2014. godine u Republici Srbije, koje su bile jedna od najvećih poplava u posljednjih 100 godina koje su se desile, problemi konkretni koje smo imali u tom periodu bili su nepostojanje sistema rane najave u slučaju poplava.
Nálunk Magyarországon két nagy komolyabb árvíz volt az elmúlt 15 évben, az egyik a 2002. évi nagy, ahol elértük a valaha mért legmagasabb vízállást, majd most 2013-ban ezt meg is haladta a vízhozam. komolyabb esemény volt Győrújfalunál, ahol megsúvadt a gát, és idővel futottunk versenyt tulajdonképpen a védmű megerősítésével, hogy ne kelljen több ezer embert kitelepítenünk, illetve hogy az otthonaikban ne keletkezzen semmilyen kár.
Wir haben das Problem, dass die Deiche oft völlig durchfeuchtet sind und deswegen nicht mehr betreten werden können. Und wir haben kein Mittel, um wasserseits den Deich zu ertüchtigen.
According to the scientific studies, to our knowledge and modeling coming from the projections of the impact of the climate change, we generally expect that the floods will be more severe. The frequency might be completely different than now. So even the prediction of upcoming floods might be more difficult in the past. So in that respect, the quick response and the quick pass the information from the people who are looking at the flood risk to the flood fighters, to the people who are actually helping, should be quicker and stronger.
When you think of risks, the first thing that comes to mind is the growing number of civilians who spontaneously come to a scene of a disaster and try to help the first responders. Although this should be a positive thing, a lot of issues have to be dealt with. First responders should get prepared to put these volunteers into good use. So a good management practice is needed. So a lot more time has to be spent on training and education, and a lot more cooperation is needed between and across the first responder organizations.
DAREnet bietet eine ganz besondere Möglichkeit dadurch, dass es die Anwender der verschiedenen am Bevölkerungsschutz beteiligten Organisationen des Donauraums zusammenbringt und so ein Austausch von Anwender zu Anwender möglich wird. Gemeinsam wollen wir so für den Donauraum die besten und innovativsten Lösungen finden und in gemeinschaftlichen Initiativen hier im Donauraum umsetzen.
Pre efektívne naplnenie cieľov projektu potrebujeme aktívnu účasť všetkých zúčastnených strán. Predovšetkým používateľov služieb alebo tých, ktorí vykonávajú všetky činnosti súvisiace s ochranou pred povodňami, pretože potrebujeme zozbierať všetky vaše nápady, všetky vaše myšlienky, problémy, aby sme ich mohli v rámci projektu ďalej rozpracovať.
DAREnet ist eine wunderbare Gelegenheit für uns und die Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem Zivil- und Katastrophenschutz, sich zu vernetzen, kennenzulernen, Ideen auszutauschen, Good Practices auszutauschen und vor allem auch Bedürfnisse für die Zukunft zu formulieren.
Practicienilor, proiectul DAREnet dorește să aducă cele mai bune inovații în mâinile dumneavoastră. Prin roadmap-ul, prin foaia de parcurs a acestui proiect, dumneavoastră vă veți putea lansa propriile inițiative.
Deshalb, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ein Aufruf von mir, sich bei DAREnet zu registrieren, auf der Webpage oder im Community-Tool, um hier von Anfang an dabei zu sein, um alle Gelegenheiten und Möglichkeiten von DAREnet und dieser Community zu nutzen.
Well, just to give you a brief idea of what this project is about, and taking this video and what was said at the very end of this video, DAREnet is also collecting innovative ideas from practitioners that might be translated into projects later on. So once again, the invitation to contribute with your ideas if you have any. There's a dedicated site where you can do this. Just put in some information, and this is what we're also doing. So, but in a nutshell, DAREnet is aiming at strengthening flood management and response in the Danube River region. And for this, we are building a regional network of flood responder organizations, which you have seen in the slide before. And this network is part of a bigger community, a regional community of flood responders and practitioners. And with these stakeholders, members, network, however you want to call them, we would like to identify the most pressing innovation needs of practitioners in the Danube region dealing with floods, and in the meantime also find information about innovations and best practices which are already existing. We are collecting this and sharing this in the community in a so-called knowledge base. We assess them, set innovation priorities, and we try to shape the political, industrial, and research agendas, and to empower practitioners to acquire relevant innovations. And at the end of this process, we are publishing an innovation roadmap for the entire Danube region, and we're collecting these practitioner-driven innovation initiatives, as said before, and try to translate them into future projects. The approach we are following is a cyclic approach, as you can see here, starting from the very top to specify the challenges, then further to identify the RDI topics which are related to these challenges, assess them, analyze them, prioritize them, and pull out promising innovation opportunities. We are laying this down into RDI roadmaps, and deriving from these roadmaps, we collect the practitioner-driven initiatives. So this cycle is being performed 4 times in the course of the project. We have currently finalized our first cycle, and we're now at the beginning of the second road mapping cycle, which is dedicated to training. So the results of the first cycle are accessible for everyone. There's a first edition of the challenges and RDI topics. This is a report released some time ago. Based on this, we have set up topic working groups assessing these challenges and RDI topics. There's also a report on their activities that can be assessed. The DAREnet Research and Innovation Roadmap, which is finalized and should be available in the next few days. And of course, the call for practitioner initiatives, which is already opened and currently collecting input. So that's it for the project. Any questions on this?
Yeah, thank you, Balázs. So just to let you know, when we send out, so after this webinar, we will send out invitation for the questionnaires, and we will also include links to these results from the first cycle, so that you can have a look by yourself if you haven't seen them yet. So now I will give you an overview about this scenario-based approach and guide you through the scenario. I will present you an overview about this idea. Then I will give you an impression or I will talk about the elements and why we choose this approach, and then I will walk you through a fictional scenario setting where we derive and discuss some tasks and activities. What we will focus on. This cycle will be dedicated to training. Mainly civil protection focused training, but there might be training aspects that go beyond this as well. So why such an approach? First, we realized during the first cycle that it's quite difficult to focus on certain aspects when you talk about just a general flooding scenario. So now we try to focus on distinct actions and tasks. We will also try to articulate our questions in a way that it's easy for distinct groups of actors, mainly from the sector of civil protection, to address those and provide us with the knowledge we ask for. It also enables us to ask more specific questions, which will finally, hopefully, lead to specific knowledge we get. And in the, because as Balázs explained during the first part, what we really aim for is to provide an RDI roadmap which truly reflects practitioner needs and reflects the actual and future challenges as well. And also a nice effect of talking about such a scenario, it will help us to create a common mental image. So hopefully all involved in the discussion will have the same or similar pictures in mind and think about it. So what is the scenario? Scenario is a fluvial flood in the fictional country of Floodistan. As I said, the fictional setting is important to be free of any local, regional limits one might have in mind, and everyone can think freely. We will see this as an evolving situation with multiple stages, from the pre-flood times until the flood peak went through, and we have the retreat of the water. So this will be the time scale, basically an evolution through this whole scenario. So in this approach, we realize that we need to separate it in certain elements which are important in regards to analyze it. So first, this is the scenario. This is flooding, but then we have another major part in it are the actors with all their needs and relevant aspects. But also there might be some external factors like media or political pressure on the decisions made by the actors. And now when we see the flood as the main scenario, there might be, or there are tasks and activities that are directly derived out of the scenario, and those tasks and activities are addressed by various groups of actors. And this example, we choose the levee control, which might be done by the owners of the levee or the firefighters if it's a severe situation and they need support and the owner cannot do it. When coming to the levee defense, usually that's something that's beyond the capabilities of the owner, and firefighters or even military, or nowadays more and more spontaneous volunteers get involved in those situations. Those are the players or actors fulfilling those tasks. But there's more, there's another aspect to it. Those tasks usually have a concept to address it. Usually there's training required and also special equipment to fulfill those tasks. And this brings us back to this model I showed you earlier. So we have the scenario, which is the flood. Out of this flood, there are tasks and activities derived, like levee control. Those tasks are done by actors. They have a portfolio of procedures and concepts they can rely on and use and apply, which are defined by training and the available equipment. And then we might have external factors who provide access, for example, or provide specialty difficulties to the task to solve. May I ask you to mute your microphone? That make the recording better.
Training equipment.
Sorry. Could the one who translated it turn down the microphone, please? Thanks. Okay, sorry. So, as I said, we would like to walk you through this whole evolution of the flooding event until the later stage, the recovery stage, and therefore we simplified the disaster cycle. So basically, we merged mitigation and preparation to one point, since we really start shortly before the appearing of flooding event. So the scenario setting, as I said, it's the fictional country of Floodistan, crossed by the Danube, flowing from the northwest to the southeast. And we also have the little Danube, which is also, it's a smaller tributary, but it's a major inland waterway. And then we have the major town of the city of Danube city, actually, which is sitting at the river. You might want to compare to a city like Vienna or something. Then we have Riparia, a little further down the stream, which is enclosed by a ring levee, sitting right next to the river. And we have near village and far town, sitting to the east of the little Danube. So this is the setting. As I said, the Danube is flowing from the northwest to the east, and the little Danube is flowing to the north and merging with the Danube right at the extent of Danube city. Well, let's now jump into the first phase. Due to lasting rainfalls, a significant flood of the Danube is expected. It will most likely exceed the central flood level, but at that point there is no warning for the smaller tributary, the Danube. So, as I said, now we're zooming into the Danube city, since at that point it's not seen as a major threat already. So we expect a really a powerful flood. So therefore, it comes along with some tasks generated from it. First, the preparation of the public would have been a task basically for the mitigation phase, right? To train them how to protect their properties, how to behave, approaches, and then we have the early warning to warn authorities and the public as well that a flood is coming, that they might get prepared for it. Then, of course, we start getting prepared on the response side, so the coordination of command and control will be a really important task to set up, and of course also having the alert concepts on hand to get the right responders at the to the right spots at the right time. And of course, stocking and warehousing of goods meant for flood protection measures, as well as setting those protection measures up, will be definitely a task for this early phase, like setting up mobile flood walls on the riverside, sealing and shutting off sewage systems, which might be a danger for the hinterlands. So now jumping to the response phase 1, or to the early flooding event, what is happening? So the rainfall still lasts while the first flooding occurs, and so the prognosis still stands that might exert the central flood level and be really severe. Now they actually came with a warning for the smaller tributary as well, so there's a flood as well expected. And there will be a severe threat for the downstream locations of the Danube when the two flood waves of the Little Danube and of the Danube River will merge right after the Danube city. So this will lead us to, again, now we're talking about the tasks and activities linked or to be expected at that stage. Of course, coordination, command and control will be throughout the whole scenario. We won't show that again, so just a quick reminder for you guys. Then, of course, now we have a severe flooding, so there's the levees are actually flooded from the water side, so it will be important to control them and keep an eye and find weaknesses and start the right measures at the right time. And then also an important point, it would be really important to look out for float zone or log jams to avoid any damages to the levees or to bridges and other waterway infrastructures. What's also in task that might be of high relevance at that point is to start the social media handling for either reconnaissance or to evaluate and observe what is happening actually in the public. Are there any groups of spontaneous and unbound volunteers forming, as well as integrating those groups as early as possible, get in touch with them as early as possible. Okay, now you see the worsening of the situation, so the flooding becomes more intense. So in the narrative, the rainfall slows, however, the flooding increases. Still, there's still a lot of water flowing down the river. And the prognosis still stands, and it actually became very likely that the Centuria flood level will be exerted at that time. That's this. And actually the levee at near village ruptured or failed. So we have a severe flooding there in the levee hinterland. And we also see the rare event that the two flood waves merge right at Danube city, causing a real threat for the downstream riparians. By that time, Riparia, the small town, is fully enclosed by the water and disconnected to the outside world, which hasn't been too worse in the beginning, since the people are used to this danger living there for quite a while. Activities which we expect then. So of course now it's really important we see those wet and possibly weakened dikes. We saw already the levee failure at near village, so levee defense will be a task, probably mainly using sandbags, but also big bags filled with gravel or sand, or even substituting technical systems to build up emergency levees or dams and to reinforce the dike structures weakened by the water. Then, of course, now we saw this ruptured levee at New Village, so Fartown, which is, as you can imagine from this map, which is located in kind of a valley, needs to be evacuated. Of course, then we need to shelter those evacuees, and one should also think about providing psychological support to those evacuated and affected by the flood. And of course, if we evacuate areas, the perimeter needs to be secured. That will be also a task for responders. So now we are at the full extent of the flood. The levee by the Danube city was overflown, so we see severe flooding inside the town. The flood level was the Centuria flood level was exerted. which now requires dedicated reactions. We also saw a second levee failure at near village due to the wetting from both sides of the river, of the levee. We have Far Town flooded nearly completely by now, and also Riparia is now being separated for quite a while, so now the inhabitants might need supplies by medicine or other goods for daily life. Tasks and activities resulting now from this high stand, we certainly need to supply the Riparia inhabitants. Now the good part of the Danube city center is flooded, so there might be boat operations ongoing to get people out of the threat. Near village was also massively flooded, so their water rescue operations are ongoing. And in Far Town, since it's now almost completely flooded, we will have we'll need some air rescue for those who remain there. And another important point, which is true for the whole scenario, early on till the really late stage, is appropriate hygienic methods, since this is most likely highly contaminated water mixed with the sewage water, posing a real threat to all of those who get in touch with it, and not just the responders. Now leads us to the recovery phase. So we have seen the worst flooding for this area in quite a while. Now it's relaxed. The situation is relaxing. We see a decrease in the water levels, as you can see. Even in Danube city, the water was pumped out, or most of the water was pumped out. You see that Far Town is now being dry again, so the water also flow back to the Little Danube. However, you have this second levee failure there, which is basically now an exit point for the water, which flooded near village and Far Town. Tasks and activities now important will be the pumping operations, not just pumping out the water, but also supporting the sewage system if the sewage pumping stations failed, to keep that ongoing or get that back running. Also important task will be a cleanup of the area, since if the mud usually transported the sediments and the debris by the water flow will dry out. It will be really hard to remove, so the cleanup operations will be really important to start them early on. And of course then supplying and restoring infrastructure in the damaged and affected areas, which could be levees, but it's also, like I said, damaged sewage stations, damaged power stations, get all that restored so people can return to normal days life as fast as possible. And of course, especially for those who lost their goods, their property, functioning social care mechanisms like fundraising campaigns and distribution of support to get them back to their normal and self-determined life as fast as possible. So these have been this was a really quick run through the scenario, and of course those tasks and activities are not limited to the parts I presented them in, but that's where we expect them to become most important or most relevant, and most of them will really be important throughout the whole scenario. For example, command and control, for example, hygienic measures, So just to get an idea what we're talking about and what we would like to ask you to provide your knowledge on, your experience. And therefore, I would like to hand over to my colleague Ronald. Are you ready, Ronald?
Yeah, I am ready. And hello from my side. Now it's my honor to introduce you to the slightly more unpleasant part, the questionnaire that we try to use to collect your knowledge. This is actually the questionnaire that comes behind that scenario that Christian just introduced to you. And it is more or less, it consists of 5 parts. And here you see the first part, the welcoming part. Just an advice before we start, you see here there is an advice that we will be saving all your inputs locally. And if you're doing this on a public or shared computer, you may disable this option in order not to store anything locally. But if you do this on your working device or on a private device, you could just leave it here as it is. And if your browser crashes or something, or if there is an unsafe shutdown, then all your input will be stored and will be restored. Okay. So basically, the first page of the questionnaire is just explaining to you why we are doing this, and this is because we need your expertise and we need to have the practitioner's view on needs, on gaps, and on innovation opportunities. And by clicking the next button, you will get to the next slide, the next page. And there on the next page, we are asking you for some personal information. But this information is voluntary. Mandatory fields, as stated here, are marked with a star symbol, and this is just for us to have, let's say, to have the information then better rankable or sortable. So just an example here, I will provide my name, and also as a voluntary information, I might provide my email address. And here, this is just for statistical reason in order to assure that we have any neighboring country of the Danube River in this questionnaire. Here you could state your nationality. I'm from Germany. In case you should be from any other country that is not a direct neighboring country of the Danube River, you could also select other and then specify that maybe you're from Poland or something like this. But I'm from Germany, as I said. Okay. Then we try to ask or to get a glance about your experience. This information, of course, will be again strictly anonymous. You don't have to fear that anything will be compared to any other information from you. And maybe before we proceed, some personal details about my person. I'm a researcher focusing on traffic simulation, that is on road traffic. But for regular situations, but also for non-regular situations, as maybe, for example, public mass events or disasters. That differs from everyday traffic. So this is why I'm integrated in this project. And but of course, you can hear from this that my background in disaster management is rather limited, or more focused on traffic and logistics management. So maybe some of my input that I will show you here might be a little strange from your real practitioner perspective. But of course, if we go on, okay, I'm doing this for quite a while, for 10 years, something like this. So I would select this here. Then when we are doing this more or less on a tactical level. We are providing, so to speak, decision support with respect to traffic management and logistics operation on a tactical level. And when I would answer this questionnaire, I would do this from a personal point of view. Of course, you can also choose to answer the question from an organizational point of view. And the name of my organization, this is the German Aerospace Center. And here you should select what your organization belongs to. It's definitely, it might be the case that for you more than one selection might apply. So the German Aerospace Center is surely academia. Maybe you're a civil protection responder working in industry. Then you should select what fits best to you, and of course for the angle that you are answering this question in the questionnaire. By the way, if there's anything unclear or if you have any question, please try to interrupt me at once to clarify the issues you might have. Okay. So by clicking next, we come to the next page, the next slide. Here we try to gather information about what you feel, how important are certain categories or certain aspects. There are 4 categories here on the left side, high relevance, and the more you get to the right side, the more the relevance decreases. And we try to divide it into 4 parts. The first part is about communication, command and control. Then the second part is more or less about alerting and communication with certain subcategories. Then it's about the actual rescue operations and emergency measures. And last but not least, about logistics and assistance. And if there's anything unclear or definitions about what in each field should be included, could also be found here at this link. If you click this link, then a PDF document should appear. Here it is open, and here, if there's anything unclear, what we have meant by specific points, then here you can read kind of a definition what differs, for example, water rescue from boat operations in our perspective or in the perspective of this questionnaire. And this is more or less also for us when we are analyzing the content of the questionnaire in order to get a feeling about the relevance of these subtopics. And last but not least, this is now the main part of the questionnaire. Here we want to gather information about the level of training that you have in certain categories or that you might wish for. So this means here you could select if you are well trained for a certain aspect, for a certain category, or if you're not trained, but you were rarely faced with this issue before, or if you've never been faced with this, and so this is simply not relevant for you. So here you could select, okay, as I said, I'm more or less in logistics operation, so I'm somehow not trained for command and control. And as well as alert concepts, I'm not trained for. No, personally, I've never been even faced with this. Also with early warning concepts. Social media handling, yeah, I'm not trained for, but I find this very, very important, very relevant. And here maybe I'm also not trained for and never faced with this. And when selecting certain points here, you see that certain subcategories will appear here. And they will appear here if you select that you have been faced with this before. Maybe you're not trained for this well, but in the past you have been faced with, for example, social media handling, and then it appears here. Maybe, of course, I'm from the German Aerospace Center, so I'm very well trained for air rescue. To select another category to show you in detail what this means then. Okay, so when you have worked through the entire list and select if you've been trained for or not trained for, or even have never been faced with this, and then click on the next button, then we want to go into detail with certain aspects that you have selected in this table. So, for example, for coordination, command, and control, where I'm not trained for, but I've been faced with this issue before, I could state if I think that there's more training needed. And of course, I think there is more training needed. And what would I wish for in this training? I would wish for better training, let's say, on interfaces and interorganizational information exchange, for example. And here you could also add anything, any other point that you think one might put a focus on. And again, here on social media training, here I could also select that I think, yeah, more training is relevant, and what I wish for is maybe here better check on timeliness of information, for example, and I have something to add, for example, refer to a certain EU project I know about on social media handling. And when we come to the next point, the air rescue, there you can see there's more to answer. And this is just because if we go back to the table, because here I've selected that I'm trained for. So this means I know more about this issue and I could provide more detailed information. And here on air rescue, the first question is that specific training that I had in mind. What is this training? How is it called? And this is maybe here the air rescue training. And on the next step, you should provide about a facility. Is it trained on a certain centralized facility in your country or in your region, or is it decentralized that there are several facilities that offer this training? And to specify this in more detail, you could also select if this training is on a regional level or even on a national level, if it's training provided by your organization itself or maybe by any other organization, let's say a private company or any other stakeholder you could provide here. And on the next field, you could specify the amount of time it takes to actually have this training. This is a free text field, and here you should specify maybe it takes 2 weeks or something like this. The next field is about the style of the training. So is it training that you have to be present at a specific place, at a specific location, because it's more or less an education or kind of a hands-on training on real hardware, or if it's more or less an e-learning, or a mixture of both, kind of a blended learning. Of course, if you have training on air rescue, then it might be present or at least a blended learning, because there might be some practical issues or practical executions needed there. You could rate from your personal point of view the quality of the training, of this training. Is it very good, or if there's need for certain improvement? And even in case it is very good, there might be place for certain improvements. For example, you ask for more practical train. Sometimes a little bit hard to enter and speak. More practical training at helicopter platforms, for example. And then, of course, the question: do you see any potential for improvement? Is there anything here you want to add? If you state here yes, then you could again specify what you think, where's the potential for improvement, or where you see certain gaps. And of course, you could add here certain other inputs. And if you're doing this for everything you selected here that you might have knowledge about, then you will walk through all these issues, and then finally there's place for a final comment. If you think that, let's say, the list on specific aspects on training that we have here is nice, but it's not really sufficient, then you might here leave a comment that we should, in further steps, we should also reflect on other parts, maybe. Or if you have any other ideas, then please fill this here in this last final step. And then the real final step is the confirmation part. Here you declare your willingness to really provide your data to us, and there is another document linked here. If you click here, there might open another window, and here we declare or we explain again why we are collecting the data, who is responsible for privacy issues, and also we explain to you from a technical perspective how the collection of the data will work out. And also we provide certain addresses or certain contact points where you could ask for your data and even to erase the data. Okay, and by clicking here, you also declare that your willingness to provide us your data, and then, of course, it's the last step to click the submit button. Do you have any question right now? Is there anything unclear, or do you have any more general question? If this is not the case, then I might hand back control to Christian and Balázs.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then thank you from my side.
Thank you, Ronald. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now regarding either the project or the webinar, or the scenario approach, or our questionnaire. So we are well aware that the webinar, that the questionnaire is quite extensive, but we would really like to get this overview regarding all those tasks and views for this region, to identify any needs and possibilities for the responders to get together, group together, and improve all aspects regarding any training issues in this cycle.
Just please, Christian, just another addition, and we also provide our contact data. If you have any question later on when you fill in the questionnaire, please just feel free to contact us, especially to contact me, write me an email or something like this, and I, of course, will provide assistance.
Yes, this is really important. Either contact us, or namely Ronald, or your DNCs to ask for ask any questions. So now I would like to give you a really quick idea what's next, what's going on. So until the earliest of September, we will have this knowledge gathering process ongoing, and ask you to provide input to share your needs, your ideas, your experience with us and the community. Of course, it's anonymized. We will also start evaluating the input as it comes in, compile it, prepare it for the workshop, which will be at the end of the 24th and 25th September in Vienna. Some of you might have been already approached by your national contact points. Some will be approached, and we might get in touch with you if you leave your email address and provide really interesting, extensive input in the questionnaire. We might get in touch with you and ask you to discuss that at the workshop as well. And then at the end of October, we would like to hold another webinar, really providing you the input of the results we gathered from this whole process, to give you a heads up about the results and see what your fellow responders reported to us and what we learned from it. And therefore, I would really like to ask you to provide your email address and your contacts with the questionnaire. That way we can get in touch with you if we think this is really interesting or we have any questions. And we would also like to use this list then for the webinar in the end of October, to invite the people who took part in this webinar or contributed during this questionnaire period. And we will also get in touch with some of you specifically asking for the organizational point of view, to make sure that we really compile sufficient data to speak about the state in the region of the training regarding floods. This was it from my side. So you're more than welcome to ask any questions to myself or to Balázs or to Ronald. And I would really like to thank you all for participating, and hope you enjoyed that rather quick webinar. Okay, so if there are no questions, I would again thank you all. It was a pleasure. I hope you found it somehow interesting what we presented on. And see you soon. Hear you soon.